How's it going, everybody?
Hello.
Playing some Slime Rancher while reading The Eye of Argon,
Yeah, we decided to switch the game up this week just so nobody gets too bored.
Part 3. Oh, I forgot I have this thing going. Alright.
So I will start with the reading while Dan farms slimes. Chapter 4. All knowledge of measuring time had escaped Grigner. When a person is deprived of the sun, moon, and stars, he loses all conception of time as had previously understood it. Really need to describe it that much? It seemed as if years had passed, if time were being measured by terms of misery and mental anguish. Yet he estimated that his stay had only been a few days in length. He slept 3 times and had been fed 5 times since awakening in the crypt. However, when the actions of the body are restricted, its needs are also affected. The need for nourishment and slumber are directly proportional to the functions of the body as performed, meaning that when free and active, Grigner may become hungry every 6 hours and witness desire for sleep every 15 hours, whereas in his present condition, he may encounter the need for food every 10 hours and the one for rest every 20 hours. Jesus Christ, that is entirely unnecessary.
Yeah, way too detailed.
All methods he had before depended upon were extinct in the dismal pit. Wait, how did he estimate his length had been only been a stay of a couple of days, even though he had
no concept
of time?
But and he knows exactly that he needs sleep every 15 hours, even though he has no concept of time.
Very contradictory.
Yeah.
All methods he had before depended upon were extinct in the dismal pit. Hence, he may have been imprisoned for 10 minutes or 10 years. He did not know, resulting in disheartening emotions deep within his being. The food, if you can honor the moldering turnips of fetid mush to that extent, was borne to him by 2 guards who opened the portal at the top of his enclosure and shoved it in wooden bowls. Born to him? Retrieving the food and water bowels from his previous meal at the same time. Fuck! Stop laughing! God damn it!
Alright.
That's you.
Yeah, I just got a bunch
It says bowels.
pink plorts. That's all I'm good for. Alright, where are we here?
Second paragraph. Fuck me, I didn't even make it through that.
Where's the bowels at? Wooden bowls. Is that not, where am I?
Yeah, wooden bowls and in wooden bowls, retrieving the food and water bowels from his previous meal.
Oh, yeah. Bowels from his previous meal at the time. After which they threw back the bolts on the iron latch and returned to their other duties. Since deprived of all other means of nourishment, Grignar was impelled to eat the tainted slop in order to ward off the pangs of starvation. The pangs, with a G. Though he has...
That's a word.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Hunger pangs.
Hunger pangs.
Yes.
It's like Hunger Games, but way intense.
More starvation.
Yeah. Though as he stuffed it into his mouth with his filthy fingers and struggled to force it down his throat, he imagined it was that which he had been spurred by the hounds stationed at various segments of the palace. That's okay. I'm like looking back, I'm like, no, I read that right. There was little in the barren vault that accompanied his body or mind. He had paced out the length and width of the enclosure time and time again, and tested every granite slab which consisted the walls of his prison in hopes of finding a hidden passage to freedom, all of which there was no avail, other than to keep him busy and distract his mind from wandering of thoughts of what he believed was his future. He had mesmerized the numbers of strides from one end to the other end of the cell, and knew in exact numbers of stabs which he had made to the bleak dungeon slabs. Numerous schemes were introduced and alternately discarded in turn as they succored to unravel to him no means of escape which stood the slightest chance of success. Anguish continued to mount as his means of occupation were rapidly exhausted. Suddenly, with no tithe, he was routed. was routed is one word they have. From his
Jesus.
contemplations as he detected a faint scratching sound at the end of a crypt opposite him. The sound seemed to be caused by something trying to scrape away the granite blocks, as the floor of the enclosure consisted of the sandy scratching of something like an animal's claws. Grignard gradually groped his way to the other end.
Ah, fuck! Grignard gradually groped.
Nothing gradual about that.
Okay, so where are we?
Gradually
groped his... Okay.
Yeah.
Grignard gradually groped his way to the other end of the vault, carefully feeling his way along with his hands ahead of him. When a few inches from the wall, a loud, penetrating squeal
Nice.
and the scampering of small padded feet reverberated from the walls of the roughly hewn chamber. You don't hew concrete. Grignard threw his hands up to shield his face and flung himself backward upon his buttocks.
Nice.
A fuzzy form bounded to his hairy chest, burying its talons in his flesh while gnashing toward his throat with its grinding white teeth. Not even going to begin to go into detail on what's wrong with that sentence. Its sour, fetid breath scorching the squirming barbarian's dilating nostrils. Grignard grappled with the lashing flexor muscles of the repugnant body of a gargantuan, brown-hided rat, striving to hold its razor teeth from his juicy jugular, as its beady gray organs of sight glazed into the flaring emeralds of its prey.
Wow.
Fuck me.
Wow. That's rough. That's hard to listen to.
Yeah, that's definitely not fighting. That's them's rape eyes right there.
Prison rules. Literally.
Taking hold of the rodent around its lean, growling stomach with both hands, Grignard pried it from his crimson-rent breast, removing small patches of flayed flesh from his chest in the motion between the squalid black claws of the starving beast. Holding the rodent at arm's length, he cupped his right hand over its frothing face, constricting his fingers into a vice-like fist over the quivering head. This sounds suspiciously like he's just jerking off.
Yeah.
Retaining his grips on the rat, Grignard flexed his outstretched arms while slowly twisting his right hand clockwise and his left hand counterclockwise. Fuck's it! Really? Stop with the goddamn description. We get it. The rodent let out a tortured squall, drawing scarlet as it violently dug its foam-flecked fangs. He's really fond of the alliteration, isn't he?
What does a squall sound like?
Drawing scarlet as it violently dug its foam-flecked fangs into the barbarian's sweating palm, causing his face to contort to an ugly grimace as he cursed beneath his breath.
I love Grimace. Fucking love that guy.
With a loud crack, the rodent's head parted from its squirming torso, sending out a sprinkling shower of crimson gore and trailing a slimy string of disjointed vertebrae, snapped trachea, esophagus, and jugular, disjointed hyoid bone, morose purpled stretched hide, and blood-seared muscles. Just like skin the rat right there.
I don't know where I am.
Sounds like it. You don't know where you are.
I don't know where this place. I just opened a door to it.
Oh, this is the way to the ancient ruins.
So I gotta.
You put honey plort, a rad plort, a pink, in those statues there.
Oh.
So, tabby. I think there's a puddle. You already put one in there.
Oh.
So the other statues are like littered around.
Yeah. Okay.
You need a boom plort, a tabby plort, a rad plort. That one's the honey.
Oh, okay.
That's the phosphor.
Yeah.
Up there's the rad.
Oh yeah, the green. Okay.
And the tabby is up to the left, I think, up on that ridge up there.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. There.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's...
I was
that's
just curious what this place was. I don't know if I've ever been there before. Maybe one time.
Maybe back when we were playing it, like, when
Yeah.
it first came out.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we here? Flinging the broken body to the floor, Grigner shook his blood-streaked hands and wiped them against his thigh until dry. Then wiped the blood that had showered his face from his eyes. Again, sitting himself upon the jagged floor, he prepared to once more revamp his glum meditations. He told himself that as long as he still breathed the gust of life through his lungs, hope was not lost. He told himself this, but found it hard to comprehend in his gloomy surroundings. Yet he was still alive, his bulging sinews at the peak of marvel, his struggling mind floating in the mural of impressed excellence of thought. What? Plot after plot sifted through his mind, in energetic contemplations. Then it hit him. Minutes may have passed in silent thought, or days, he could not tell, but he stumbled at last upon a plan that he considered as holding a slight margin of plausibility. Okay. He might die in the attempt, but he knew he would not submit without a final bloody struggle. It was no foolproof plan, yet it built up a store of renewed vortexed energy in his overwrought soul. All one word. Though he might perish in the execution of the escape, which you already mentioned, he would still escape the life of infinite torture in store for him. Also one word. Either way, he would still cheat the gloating prince of the succored revenge and his sadistic mind craved so dearly. The guards would soon come to bear him off to the prince's buried mines of dread, giving him the sought-after opportunity to execute his newly formulated plan. Groping his way along the floor. He really likes groping, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Groping his way along the floor, Grigner finally found his tool in a pool of congealed gore, the carcass of the decapitated rodent. The tool that the very filth he had been sentenced to spawned. When the time came for action, he would have to be prepared, so he set himself to rending the sticky hulk in grim silence. I'm surprised the word Stygian wasn't in there. Searching by the touch of his fingertips for the lever to freedom. Chapter 5. Wow, short chapter. Up to the altar and be done with it, wench. Ordered a fidgeting shaman as he gave the female a grim stare. Jesus, really fond of the word grim, aren't you? As he gave the female a grim stare accompanied by the wrinkling of his lips and a mirthful grin of delight. Those are antonyms. I think. The girl burst into a slow, steady whimper. Stooping shakily to her knees and cringing woefully from the priest with both arms wound snake-like around her around the bulging jade shin, rising before her scantily attired figure. Her face was redly inflamed from the salty flow of tears spouting from her glassy, dilated eyeballs.
Oh, wow.
Almost lost it for a minute there. With short, heavy footfalls, the priest approached the female, as his piercing stare never wavering from her quivering young countenance.
Aww.
What'd you do? Did you die? You died.
I jumped and I forgot stamina and jetpack are the same thing.
Hey, look at that. You might need this.
Thanks.
Where are we here? Halting before the terrified girl, he projected his arm outward and motioned to her to arise with an upward movement of his hand.
Oh, he's about to
arise. You could just say he motioned her to stand up.
Come hither.
I suppose you need a shit ton of filler with a story short as this.
Jesus.
Where are we here? The girl's whimpering increased slightly as she sunk closer to the floor rather than arising. The flickering torches outlined her trim build with a weird, ornate glow as it cast a ghostly shadow dancing in horrid waves of splendor over smoothly worn whiteness of the marble-hewn altar. More with the hewing of marble and concrete.
A lot of hues.
I mean, you can't hew solid objects. The shaman's lips curled back further, exposing a set of blackened, decaying molars, which transformed his slovenly grin into a wide, greasy arc of sadistic mirth, and alternately interposed into the female a strong sense of stomach-curdling nausea. Have it as you will, female, gloated the enhanced priest. Yeah, that's what that says. As he bent over at the waist, projecting his ape-like arms forward and clasped the female's slender arms with his hairy, round fists. With an inward surge of his biceps, harshly jerked the trembling girl to her feet and smothered her salty, wet cheeks with the moldy touch of his decrepit, dull red lips.
Wow.
Decrepit. Decrepit spelled with a T, Jim. The vile stench of the shaman's hot, fetid breath overcame the nauseated female with deep, soul-searing sickness. Get the alliteration? Causing her to wrench back her headwards and regurgitate a slimy, orange-white, one word, stream of swelling gore over the richly... Well, for fuck's sakes, you don't spit gore!
You don't spit.
Fuck.
Okay, we got $2,000, Steve.
Okay, we're chapter 5.
Yeah, I need to scroll down a little.
Right here.
Okay.
The one-line paragraph, fourth. What were we doing?
The one line. Oh, okay, the vile stench.
Yeah.
I just made. I was doing stuff and then I died, so I gave up and I just.
Okay, so what was the goal?
Oh, nothing.
Were we gonna... Okay, fair
Just
enough.
like real life, I have no goals.
Oh.
The vile stench of the shaman's hot field breath overcame the nauseated female with a deep, soul-searing sickness, causing her to wrench her head backwards and regurgitate a slimy orange-white, right, you said this, orange-white one word, stream of swelling gore over the richly woven purple robe of the enthused acolyte.
Is he an acolyte or a shaman?
Yeah, people can be two things. The priest's lips trembled with a malicious rage as he removed his callous paws from the girl's arms and replaced them with tightly around her undulating neck, shaking her violently to and fro.
Her undulating neck, huh?
Yeah, I replaced them with. The girl grasped a tortured groan from her clamped lungs, her sea blue eyes bulging forth from damp sockets. Cocking her right foot backwards, she leashed it desperately outwards with the strength of a demon possessed, lodging her sandaled foot squarely between the shaman's testicles. That'll do it.
That's a
Yeah,
laugh
right between the testicles.
That was a laugh.
Yeah, I didn't expect to go very long.
Okay, so between
testicles.
the shaman's testicles.
Yeah, this startled priest.
The startled priest relapsed his crushing grip, crimping his body over at the waist, overlooking his recessed belly, wide open in a deep chasm. Chasm. Chasim. His face flushed to a rose-red shade of crimson, eyes fluttering wide and eyeballs protruding blindly outwards from their... Is he a fucking cartoon character? Protruding blindly outwards from their sockets to their outmost perimeters, while his lips quivered wildly about allowing an agonized wallow to gust forth as his breath billowed from burning lungs. His hands reached out, clutching his urinary gland as his knees wobbled rapidly about a few seconds, then buckled, causing the ruptured shaman to collapse in an egg-huddled mass to the granite pavement, rolling helplessly about in his agony.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, well, that's it for this episode.
Wow. Holy. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Alright, tune in next time.